We all try to fit in to a mold determined by society rather than fit into your individuality. And chased your dream, my life. Because at this level it becomes about my dream and my life. You agree? Alright? Rather than what other people determine. And you may be saying, wait a minute, this guy said this talk was about career, relationships, and life purpose. Where does relationships fit in? At some point, I guess you fell in love, isn't it? In your life, huh? Some point. Maybe your first love, where it was a complete passion, imagination, dream, fantasy, isn't it? You felt, wow, this person takes your breath away, or every single love song in the world, isn't it? Are you still there? In terms of that mental, emotional space, I see people shaking their heads. Gosh, that's why we're here, right? Then afterwards, that relationship, if perchance you sustained it for more than a day or two, it became about logic and rationality and routine and structure and efficiency, isn't it? By the time you made it to our facility, it got to, the relationship became one of survival. Making it through the day was tough with this person, isn't it? As much as you think you just exist, you're hoping that person doesn't exist, right? You understand? You're completely down in the dumps in terms of the relationship. From a completely emotional, passionate, exciting relationship, it went downwards, isn't it? It's not where it originally you'd have wanted it to be, still there, isn't it? The relationship went from here downwards, isn't it? What is depression? Given we've got these three pyramids, depression is regression, where from here, where you were living in the throes of happiness, excitement, passion, fantasy, you went slowly down into routine and structure, and lo and behold, your life went right down to the bottom, isn't it? So, the question comes up for you and I. We want to get there, isn't it? We want to feel excited and energized and passionate about life, isn't it? All right? You agree? We want to feel something again, isn't it? We want to feel something positive. So how do we get back here again? Let me ask you this question. Anyone famous who's lived life as an individual, chased their passion, their excitement, their dreams that you and I know of in the world? Who's living life completely in terms of chasing their passion and dream and fantasy? Oprah, okay, yeah. Trevor Noah, yeah. All these people, they're chasing their passion. He's, kind of living the life, isn't it? New York City, isn't it? Exciting, energizing, passionate, isn't it? Like he doesn't say, no, I want to go back to South Africa and be a lawyer because that's what my mother told me to be. He's not kind of saying that at the moment, isn't it? You agree? Or let me be an engineer and kind of, isn't it? You agree? He's kind of living it. He's going to live this dream. By the way, how long is he going to remain the talk show host for? Is he going to say, I'm giving it a year or two as per my CV, and then I'll get a job on South African TV on 3 Talk or something? Is he saying that? How long is he going to rock that boat for? He's going to ride it till, I think I need to bring the next guy up, we hope, from South Africa to take over my role, isn't it? We hope so at least. But he's going to roll with it for the rest of his life, isn't it? As much as the Daily Show, he'll do the nightly show and the routine show or whatever show, he's going to do it, isn't it? In fact, he will do it year to year for life. He's going to do it for his entire life, isn't it? When you find your passion, your truth, your love, you do it for the rest of your life, isn't it? If you find you're the best footballer in the world, you don't say, I'm going to do it for 2 years and then give up. You play till your legs can't run underneath you, isn't it? At some point they give up because physically they're not playing at the level, isn't it? All right, if you, the best chef in the world, you cook till you can't cook anymore, isn't it? You agree? So everyone does it. Even Oprah, as much as she gave up the show, as you spoke of Oprah, she's still doing stuff, isn't it? Interviews and stuff, all right? All right, you kind of, Lionel Richie, who sang you those songs of passion and excitement, he comes to South Africa. It's not like no one goes. People go, isn't it? Because, hey, it takes you back to the good old days, and he still sings, isn't it? All right, the ones you mentioned are still building on this, isn't it? But some people kind of reach the heights of it. Michael Jackson, I don't know their personal lives, but at some level, many celebrities' lives slipped down as much as yours did, isn't it? They went into the throes of depression, anxiety, substance use, isn't it? Yeah. Why did their lives break down? Why did your life break down? Because I'm using them as an example so we can see why our lives break down to the bottom. What happened? What happened to your lives? That your life broke down, that you now regressed, and lo and behold, we're depressed, anxious, stressed. Why did we not able to sustain the excitement, the energy, the passion, the bliss, the happiness, the joy, the love? What happened that we're there at the bottom? And something very important I want to share. The moment, the hassle is as much as we get to this point, the moment we make it about ourselves, my life, my dream, it has no choice but to go backwards. The moment we make it about our ego, that we start believing this is who we are, and this is the heights of who we are. As much as you live in your entire life, it breaks down, because this is not the height of your life. The moment you make it about you, it has no choice but to go down to the bottom. In fact, sometimes when you say to someone, it's very dangerous sometimes, I think, to say to someone, as much as we all say, I love you, that means I, in my current form, love you as you are. What's the problem with that? One is you are going to change, and two is the other person is going to change. Therein, it will definitely cause some tension, some stress and conflict eventually. Because you are not the same person I thought you were, or you're not the person I thought you were. Isn't it? And we're all in this world, being pulled in different directions by, I call it tugs of war, pulling us to be other things. Your work is making you one thing, your partner is making you another thing, your parents are making you another thing, the kids are making you another thing. We're all being pulled in different directions, be it by society, community, social media this day and age, isn't it? And you're being pulled, and you eventually end up at the bottom. The moment you make it about you, it has no choice but to go to the bottom, because you've decided what you've seen as your dream, your passion, will take you through the day. Isn't it? And this then leads it to becoming selfish, because it's about what I want out of life. At this point, you said, an individual. The hassle is when you stand alone, you cannot go any further. There's a saying, alone you can go fast, but together you can go further. The problem is, as fast as you go as an individual, that's as how high you can go. Beyond that, to go further, you have to start connecting, and we've lost sight of the others. We want people to fit into our world, in a manner of speaking, rather than you and I fitting into the world. Do you understand? And the reason why we fear failure, because we're concerned that as we are, we will not be accepted. But it's not about as you are, it's about you and I tying into something more. So are you and I only going to reminisce about the days of joy, of love and passion and excitement? You know, when you were 16 and you fell in love, or that time it was the height of your life? Or can we sustain passion, excitement? Is it something we're all going to hark about, think about, wow, remember those days when we were happy? All of us on WhatsApp groups, isn't it? And some of you, like me, on like a matric WhatsApp group, isn't it? You know, school, right? Some of us then beyond that, then university WhatsApp group, right? Some of us are then other WhatsApp groups of people in your lives, isn't it? And you remember those days of love, excitement, energy, isn't it? And we live for those days, isn't it? All right, because now we're kind of routine structured. But excitement and passion and energy, is it gone forever? There's two reasons over the years that I found that 99%, when it comes to, if there's other people are the reason you got depressed, there's two reasons why we get depressed. One is your wants, desires, expectations were not met. Even if you have less of an expectation, at some level it's an expectation, it's not met. The second is, as much as you have no expectation, you still feel they did something to you. It doesn't, in fact, life is never about an expectation from others. Because that expectation is how much can I get? As much as you decide I will get less, it's still an expectation. Yeah. It's about how much you can give. You understand? Be wary that even if you have a minimal expectation, will they meet up with it? At least give me some love. Do they even give you that? No, it's like sometimes you have to like really squeeze them, and you kind of realize that this person's not capable of love because they are kind of a rock, isn't it? You probably might get water out of a rock, isn't it? All right? With your partner, it's like kind of like, gee whiz, what are you expecting, isn't it? You understand? Because and it's the whole talk in itself, because how do people see love? Provide food on the table, isn't that enough love? Isn't it? And some of us give loads of love, but the other person, we're so closed off, we can't acknowledge the love. We're not even aware this is love. Isn't it? Your kids come to you, Dad, how are you today? What do you want? How much you want? Isn't it? Because you kind of know there's something subtle in that show of love, isn't it? Yeah, so we all become paranoid, suspicious people. So be wary of expectations. I cannot promise you a world where you'll get anything. You understand? So there we are, right? So you recognize this is not enough, but then there has to be more, isn't it? All right? Because this cannot sustain itself. So hopefully there's another pyramid. What do we put at the top here? We've got the physical, we've got the mental, we've got the emotional. Okay, we'll use your word spiritual. We'll put the word calling as well, isn't it? Your purpose, your meaning, your truth. You agree? All right, your legacy. All right? Let me ask you, anyone we know who might fit into a category of living a life of meaning, truth, from a South African context? Anyone we know? Who's lived a life of meaning in this country? Who's the most well-known person? Mandela, isn't it? You agree? Let's write his name down, right? Because it was no fun, I'm sure, being on that prison on that island for 27 odd years. It was what life wanted out of him to facilitate freedom. Isn't it? He chased a purpose, a truth, a meaning beyond his personal ones, because he could have easily been, as he was, one of the first black lawyers in this country at Mandela Sisulu and Associates in Commissioner Street, isn't it? Having a beautiful car, nice suits, as he even says, the ample joys of life, yet he gave all that up for a greater purpose, a truth, a meaning, isn't it? What he did is he even embraced pain versus pleasure. Isn't it? At one point, they told him, they told him, you are wrong versus right, isn't it? You are bad versus good. Yet he recognized and he did transcend the barriers of how society determined he was. Isn't it? You and I, that way you get remembered forever rather than living for a life, he lives for lifetimes. Okay? It's about chasing a truth, a purpose. Yes, you will encounter being defeated as much as victory. You will be insulted as much as honored. You may even face death versus life. All right? But then you're chasing something far more powerful beyond who you are, determined by the universe rather than what you want. Here remember we said, here you're a cog in the wheel. Here you grease the wheel, here you spin the wheel, but this becomes a universal wheel. We spoke of autopilot right at the beginning, where you kind of get through the day. Isn't it? Here you kind of autopilot, you get through the month for the year. Here you on autopilot, although it doesn't seem so, because you get through your life. Isn't it? Because you're beyond comfortable if you're relatively successful. Here there's a different form of autopilot. You're on the universal autopilot. That means you are on cahoots, and the computer that determines the autopilot is the universal wheel. You understand? And actually, there's talks of it where you don't do, but you allow the universe to work through you. Isn't it? I find it fascinating because some of us work really hard, huh? We all work hard. You agree? And the whole thing is, though, there's this concept of effortless working, where you don't do the work, where you do the work of the universe and the universe works through you. And great leaders become the conduit, the vehicle of the universe, where you allow that autopilot to work through you. And then you are authentic and in alignment with something far more powerful than your mind that determines the way forward. The universe determines the way forward. So whether there's an obstacle, you accept the obstacle because you got to kind of flow past that obstacle. Isn't it? There's no challenges. You kind of in flow. That's the word flow comes through. Nothing becomes right or wrong, good or bad, happy or sad. Yes, it does mean living according to principle, not according to what your boss says. All right? You're living according to maybe if you believe in that principle, the 10 Commandments, isn't it? Or whatever principles you live by. You're living life authentically and in alignment with something so much more powerful. Does that resonate? And you don't get attached to daily, mundane objects even. You agree? Like the physical and material objects that those then become a means to an end rather than means to in itself. If we attach to a physical object, be it a beautiful car, a nice watch, a cell phone, those hold us back. The idea is to be driven by the far most powerful dream there is. Not your or my dream, but the universal dream, because I put it to you this way. As big as you and I are dreaming so small. But imagine tying into a universal dream, then you are working effortlessly. Then you're tying into something that's principled and purpose-driven. All right? Then you truly have broken free of all the mundane that makes you depressed and regress. You understand? Because depression sometimes is you agree when we get depressed, we reflect, we introspect. Our mind constantly is thinking, isn't it? Yeah. Why? It wants to find the solution to the problem. And you recognize the old way of thinking doesn't work for you. You got to look at it as much as you look at it as the most painful thing that happens to you, the most absolute curse that has happened to you. It's a transition. It's you and I like caterpillars in that cocoon, you know. They speak of the crustacean that needs to break free like that butterfly. Is the caterpillar, does it look anything like the butterfly? You and I are all blessed because if you're going through a depression, what has to rise out of there is something completely new. You will not recognize your new self from the old self. Depression is about getting into that like hibernating state to achieve a more powerful space. Isn't it? Because you recognize your old way of thinking is not going to set you free. Over the years, I've had to reflect on why does the mind go through depression? What's so good about it, isn't it? Because anything your body or your mind naturally does at some level, because you don't choose to be depressed. None of us want to be depressed. It's like the most lousiest feeling on earth. Huh? It is the lousiest feeling on earth, right? And physically, like something happens, your body heals, isn't it? It like cuts itself kind of sensed up. So how does the mind heal? The mind says, get depressed. Because this current way of thinking is not going to set you free. It's like hitting your head, as they say, against that brick wall, and we hope like hell it changes. No, we have to raise above. All right? But very important, and just in the 2 seconds we have left, is that as much as we are slaves, servants, right? Wanting to be managers or merchants or being kings and queens and CEOs, you need to be inspired and aspired by a leader or a saint. As much as we want to be here, right, inspired and aspired, very, 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 very important is to remain a servant to that universe. That way, you do not become arrogant and you humble yourself to the greater purpose and you allow all 4 pyramids to be part of you and you to be part of them. All right. So the whole thing is to take yourself, recognize that you are more than these. We generally live at these 2 entities, isn't it? To take yourself back there, but take yourself back there, realign to something far more bigger than who you are. And you will have no choice to achieve the excitement, the energy, the passion, the fantasy, the dream that we all lack. All right. Like we spoke of Mandela, right? Something as much as you might decide he's your favorite president. Why? It's about how he made you feel. Rather than as much as what he did. Isn't it? It's about the love and kindness. And he was a complete example of servant leadership, isn't it? All right, you agree? Yeah. And the reason we don't like some of our leaders today is because they act like kings and queens and CEOs, isn't it? And they're completely sitting on top of their tower. Right? This is the world over. So recognize the fact that you've got to know where you're coming from. Be rooted. I'll use another word. Be grass-rooted. Recognize that base. Because as powerful as you are, you've got to be humble and centered and in alignment and authentic to who you are. All right.